All right. Growing up, he was no stranger to the arts, the son of a Swedish actor, comedian, producer, director, and musician. His passion for acting came early, appearing in stage productions, followed by television, music videos, and eventually feature films. He literally traveled the world to get to Hollywood, living in nearly every country before settling in the City of the Stars to continue pursuing his dream. In 1990, he landed his first feature film in Slumber Party Massacre 3, and 1 year later, he would land his first major role in a feature film playing the Stairmaster in the film that brings us together today, The People Under the Stairs. And he never looked back. The Young and the Restless, Strange Days, Bless the Child, Charm, Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job, Hawaii Five-0, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Terror Tales, and Sky Sharks covers about 1/3 of the films and television shows he's been in. He's also a producer with his latest film, Adeline's Lane, currently in pre-production. He has etched himself a space in horror history as an icon among the greats, and we couldn't think of a better guest to be joining us on Halloween night than Mr. Jan Burke. Thank you very much for being here, Jan.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, again, we really appreciate you taking the time out. Now, Jan, you really have never looked back since you hit the ground running as a kid. Is that right?
That is right. I mean, I knew very, very early. I mean, I didn't know specifically this is what I want to do, but when I look back on it, I was kind of on the track right away because I loved theater plays. I loved, even when I was in like kindergarten and first to second grade, before the teacher showed up. When the classroom fills up, I used to go on the front and do fake phone calls with a plastic phone and pretend that I talked to somebody and I made jokes and stuff. And I got in trouble a couple of times by the teacher, of course, because I couldn't stop doing it. But yeah, I knew very early that I like to be in front of people and make them laugh or entertain themselves.
Now, I'm going to tell you, well, first off, I know all about being a class clown, but again, we're just misunderstood at a younger age. That's all that it is. I'm going to tell you this. I think it's really cool how you made it a point to travel the world and experience various walks of life firsthand. I think it's something really every person should do. It really should be a birthright, if you really ask me. What was the experience like? The most important thing you've learned in your travels, experiencing different cultures and different things?
Well, that was something I always wanted to do. Like you said, it was on my bucket list. And, Europeans in general, a lot of us do that. Especially Scandinavians and Germans and Dutch and, the Western Europe. It's just something that I wanted to do. And it was on my list immediately after I graduated. I wanted to go travel. The best experience was probably, like the time I was out, I learned more on my travels than I did in 4 years of college. I have to say that about life experience, because it's not maybe it's basically it's not a math problem or it's not a quiz in English or whatever, but it's you learn different cultures, you learn different people, you learn how to recognize personalities, and you actually learn so much about yourself and how you want to be towards other people, especially when you travel to different countries. I traveled to a lot of countries where I didn't really speak the language and they barely spoke English. And, you just have to get to know people in a different way and how to communicate and how to make your own life better by learning from other people's experiences.
I bet that adds so much perspective to seeing like how people all over the world are different in so many ways, but then there's like these core things that almost like all human beings have in common that I'm sure you see when you go to different places.
Yeah, no, I went to, for example, I went to Cuba before, they became a little bit more liberal in their thinking. I went to China in 1986, way before they had a McDonald's there. All they had was black bicycles and it was not even a single car in the streets. Now I have millions of cars. So I was fortunate enough to experience some of these countries before they, modernized or before they became more of a Western civilization. That one I appreciated a lot because, I really, really enjoyed, for example, China and Cuba and their people at the time I was traveling. They were a little bit isolated, but it just gave them more love towards me. I was amazed how much love they had for strangers and for travelers. And And you know, I was walking on the street in Havana, and everybody just asked me, do you need help? Where do you stay? Do you want some food? They have good pizza around the corner. I mean, and the same in China. China, actually, I was amazed in Beijing. I was in the capital, and I went to rent a bike. And I went to this bike rental place because everybody was riding a bike, as I said earlier. And he just said, okay, what kind of bike? Just pick out a bike, you know, like with hand gestures, because I didn't speak Chinese and he didn't speak any English. So I pointed at a bike, he gave it to me, and I took my money out to pay. And he said, no, pay when come back. And I'm like, Jesus, he just gave me, a stranger, a bike, and you know, there was no time limit, just payment, come back. And unfortunately, a lot of tourists use that because I saw bikes everywhere, just thrown in a ditch. You know, they just they used the system, which you know, I felt terrible about that. But that's how trusting they were, and it was amazing to see this trusting nature. And of course, I returned my bike and I paid him. But that was just one example of like the trust and the honesty that I experienced, which actually works both in my favor and against me when I moved to America, because I was a little bit too naive.
Yes.
I got taken advantage of a few times when I got here, but
hey,
you know,
you walk in the store here.
That's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. You also, aside from traveling the world, you graduated with a BA in mechanical engineering and a degree in mathematics. Was that like an insurance policy for you in case acting didn't pan out, or like, and also where did you find the time and energy to do this?
Yeah, no, on a good note, the Swedish educational system is a little different. So I graduated high school at 16, basically. And then I went straight into mechanical engineering. So I was done at 20 after those 4 years. But, you know, my father was an entertainer. When I grew up, when I was born and grew up, he already kind of made it. You know, but I was the last out of 5. I was definitely, you know, it was quite, my older sister is 17 years older than me. So it was definitely a lot of age difference. And my father was 45 when I was born. So he finally kind of made it. So I didn't really experience his earlier life. But what I learned, obviously, growing up was that he was, you know, taking whatever job he could get with a very, very little education, because he came from a poor family. This is before Sweden had social democracy that started in the 40s. So when he was born, it was very, very poor people and very, very rich people. It was like the scale. There was no middle class at all. So he was on that bottom scale. And he started working at 6 years old in the glass factories, passing their, you know, when they blow glass, one person blows one thing and then they pass it to another person who blows another thing. And, you know, the Costa Boa, that Orrefors in that area, that's where my father grew up. And his job as a 6-year-old was to pass these things between people and light pipes. So he started smoking quite early.
Wow. My daughter is 6 years old. I could not imagine trusting her with any responsibility. I can barely get her to pick up her clothes or put her shoes right. Oh, that's crazy. 6 years old. He
didn't have a choice. And he made like 10 cents a week, I think, and it all went to the family. He had, you know, 13 sisters and brothers. So anyway, and on that note, so when I was born, you know, he finally made it as an entertainer, but he did by mail. I have to say, he became an engineer via mail. That you could do in those days, just to get an education, just to get, you know, a higher paying job if the entertainment didn't pan out or before he made it. So he worked as an engineer for a little bit before he hit it, before I was born. And so when I you know, grew up, he always told me, hey, you got to get something as a backup. You have to have something to fall back on. And because he was an engineer, I'm like, oh, I just become an engineer. And for a while I was thinking, if acting doesn't pan out, because he had a really good job before he hit it as an actor, and he had really good contact with that company still. So I'm thinking, if it doesn't pan out for me, maybe I can get his old job back. I mean, that was my thought as a teenager. You have these fantasies. Let me do what my dad does. And if entertainment doesn't work, I can I can do whatever the other stuff he did. because then I knew he could teach me and guide me and so forth. So yeah, that was definitely a backup, a fall, something to fall back on.
One of the things I think as an entertainer and as a thespian, we all know, unless we're born into it, is that you always, acting is the one career, entertainment is the one career where you're always going to need a fallback plan, because you never know in between jobs, you think your star's going one way, and then it could just happen just like that. But let me ask you this. I know the first time you're in front of camera was one thing, because I think as actors, we act, we do stage, we do things, but there's a big difference between you entertaining and then you being in your first credited film. So I want to know, once you got your role on Slumber Party Massacre 3, what was the experience you took away from that? Because no longer are you just, hey, I'm entertaining, I'm practicing, these are me and my friends doing this. This is now an accredited film. And what was the experience going from, hey, it's pro time now? What was that experience like for you?
It's a very good experience. And I was fortunate enough, I lived in Venice. I had a great place on the beach in Venice at the time. And then I actually walked to work because Roger Corman's studios was right there in Venice. He built basically a whole city in Venice, the old Concord Studios, Roger Corman. And so I actually, I could have walked. I did take my car to work, but I went there and I realized what it was to work, especially in America. It was all this, every room was set up differently. So it was all, compacted into this like compound of a movie studio that Roger Corman created on his own. And what I took away from it was that this is great, but it's not just 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever. This is 24 hours to do this, because you study your script at night and then you shoot during the day, and then you get new sides and new scripts, and it's like, whoa, I realized this. You got to be on. When you're on, you got to be on. When you're on a project, you can't slack. And another thing I realized was, I always saw myself. I was young, very young at the time. And I always saw myself as a method actor. So at that time, I was very, very dedicated to the craft of method acting. So what I did for this role, I actually slept on a bus bench for 3 nights in Venice on the boardwalk, pretending to be homeless, because the character I played was the twist of the story. They wanted the audience to believe that I was the killer. The driller killer. But I was basically the sideshow, looking like the killer. So he would throw off the audience. And the guy was, like homeless, hanging around Venice Beach. So I'm thinking I dressed all in black and I just hung out on the bus bench for like 3 days. And I was surprised how many quarters I got. I'm like, I mean, honestly, I'm like, dude, I didn't even try. I just put something out, and I wake up in the morning and I have like $100 in quarters in there, and I'm like, shit.
Man, this acting thing doesn't work out.
There we go. All back.
No, I would never do. God bless them. I would never want to be in that situation. But what I did learn was that preparation is very important. So I got to set, but okay. 2 things. I learned that preparation is very important, but I also learned that you can do too much. I got to set, and yes, I used what I learned those 3 days for, back and forth, but it was so much more than that. It was much more than listening to the director, listening to the fellow actors, react on their action. It was more that. And that's what I learned. Like, whatever, if your co-star says the line a certain way, you react a certain way. If they say the line in a different way, you react a different way. And it doesn't really matter how much preparation you do, not being with the people that you're going to work with. So I realized preparation is great. It's you can't take anything away from that. But at the same time, you do have to be very open to other suggestions and differences and changes when you actually come on set, due to the director's opinions and the other actors acting.
I like to tell people a lot of time one of the most major parts, and you just spoke to it, Jan, was a lot of major parts of acting is reacting.
Yes.
It has to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it's all reaction. Like a lot of these Lee Strasberg and all these Stanley and all these acting teachers, it's all, like the first thing they do when you come into an acting class is just repetition. You say something and your co-partner says the same thing, and you go back and forth and you try to say it in different ways, depending on how they present it to you. And yeah, so that's a key part. You have it's a team. What you learn is it's a team. It's not you. You're not on top of the world. Even if you have the biggest part, if the mid-sized, smallest part, even the extras doesn't do what they're supposed to do, it's not going to look good. Everybody has to be on their A game, and everybody has to follow each other's leads.
I love your take on method acting. I remember you kind of bringing it up during the 99 Problems episode we did. It's such a, I'm sure method acting is the tried and true. It's so romanticized, even though I know it probably works for some actors. But the way I love the way you put it, because it makes so much sense. Like you can like having experiences to draw from, I'm sure is beneficial when you're getting into a character. But just the being on a production is so unlike reality in itself, and everything is happening in these kind of like micro moments. You have to kind of be technical about it and approach it a different way than you would reality, because the end result is trying to look like reality, but the process is so far removed from it.
Reality, in a perfect reality, you would live moment to moment. You would focus on the moment that is, and you wouldn't worry about anything else, future or past. That's the ultimate life. And that's what you do in acting. So technically, you do what you're supposed to do in real life when you act. But then in real life, that, you have so many other, baggage and shit to think about. So you don't always do it. But that's what is always good, to stop and think and step back and chill out a little bit, maybe do meditation to actually get back to the mode and the sense of acting, reacting, which is in acting. And I think we could actually learn in real life a little bit more about doing that, even if we're not an actor.
Yeah, like we were talking to Cassie Kramer from Candyman on the last episode, and also kind of like Escalante Lundy from Django Unchained. They got into acting for like the therapeutic nature of it, to like because they had stressors going on in their life that were overwhelming. So acting was literally the antidote for that, to force them, because they were like, when we're on the stage, you don't have a choice. You have to be in that moment. There's no past or future. It's what's happening right now. And that's perfect. Like it is.
That's a perfect life. But nobody's perfect. So we're not going to do that in daily life, because all of a sudden you get a phone call and somebody pisses you off, and all of a sudden you're gone, you're off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on set, you have that moment, and you have to be in that moment to be real. And if you're not in that moment, you're not real. In real life, even if you're not in the moment, you're still real, because you're real. It's you. You might act in a way you don't want to act, but it's still real. But on camera, that's not the case, because if you're not real to the moment of the scene, people are not going to believe you. Even if you would have acted like that in real life they believe you because it's real life. But on film, they won't, because you have to be in that particular moment. So that's the change. That's the difference, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's always a challenge with making a movie that's like trying to be too realistic. It's like the reality that exists, like the way reality translates from the screen to the audience, is a lot different than. Like you kind of have to factor in for that translation when you're trying to create a fabricated reality for movies.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're more real in movies than you are in real life. I mean, it sounds really weird, and I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I think you kind of get what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because you have to be vulnerable in order to get into a character when you're being documented like that. So it's like,
And you don't put the different shades or masks on that you do in real life, depending on who you're talking to,
Yeah, you have to commit to consistency.
Yeah, and you don't ever go to, I'm going to tell them what they want to hear, because that's not in the script.
Yeah. So 1 year later, spring 1991, you become Stairmaster for the production of Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs. And we're going to get into that a little bit more later on, but just kind of going chronologically through your career, I just wanted to touch on it for a moment now. What was the process like getting such a pivotal role in a Wes Craven film? and the Stairmaster is essentially, if Freddy Krueger was a hero instead of a villain, this Stairmaster is kind of like the Freddy Krueger of People Under the Stairs for me, as far as being the face of the film. So what was that like for you getting that role, and how did that even come about?
I was very fortunate and blessed, and I'm very happy. I had a great manager at the time, Steve Vieira. I got the Slumber Party Massacre 3, and at the time when I shot it, I didn't realize that I was in really good company, like Kevin Costner and Jack Nicholson and et cetera, I have started with Roger Corman, and I just didn't realize that until afterwards. So I was in good hands. And then I guess that also made a difference, because the fact that I just made a Roger Corman movie, I think opened up the doors a little more to other people in the same genre. And I got called in to Eileen Knight for this movie, The People Under the Stairs. I barely knew who Wes Craven was, to be honest with you. To be 100% honest, I knew Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, and I know that I loved Dream Warriors #3, which I then ended up working with Chuck, which is kind of synchronicity. But I didn't know too much more about him, more than the Freddy Krueger guy. So I went to the audition, and at the audition, I actually auditioned for Roach, Sean Whalen's part in The Walls, because my character wasn't developed yet. And I'll get to that a little bit more later. But so basically, I acted out some scenes, because both Roach and the Stairmaster has the tongues cut out, so we don't have dialogue. So we have to show everything with emotions and arms and face and eyes and that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of exercises in trying to show Eileen different expressions and emotions and so forth. And then a couple of days later, I got a call back to go see Wes. And I saw Wes. I did the same thing for him over and over again. And he seemed quite pleased. And I got a call that I got the part. I mean, basically, the way it went was, you book People Under the Stairs. It's a huge movie, and you need to go to K&B tomorrow. So I went to K&B Effects the next day, not knowing what to expect at all. And we had to do the face cast and everything else, because I didn't know at that time that I was going to be a full-blown prosthetic 6 hours a day doing shooting.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I went over to K&B, and the first thing I see is Ving Rhames' naked body cast, and I'm like, Jesus. And I look at
That
Greg
was the beat of the century right there.
I look at Greg Nicotero, who's now, the Walking Dead fame and Creepshow and all that, and I said, hey, what's that? He said, oh, that's in your movie. I'm like, holy crap. He said, that's Ving Rhames. He's in your movie. At that point, nobody really knew who Ving Rhames was. That was like, I know it was, they had to really convince him to do this live cast, I heard afterwards, because he's starting to get known, and he didn't know if he wanted to be naked, like have a naked body cast in a movie, but he agreed to it. And then I did my cast, and then a few weeks later we started shooting, and it was still the best experience of my entire life.
That is, just to hear you tell that story, I'm glad that people come back and watch these full interviews, because I can only imagine being in this role. It's a Wes Craven film, and you're like, yes, I've done it. I'm an actor. And you're like, show me the script. And you're like, wait a minute. Where are the words? No, your tongue's cut out. Shit. All right. Okay. We're back to one. We're using these things now. We're using our hands. But again, that's all a part of acting, because we, what was it? Jumping Jack Flash, Cowboy, with Cuba Gooding Jr., Lightning Jack Flash, when he didn't have any words in that movie as well. It's crazy. When you have to do that, you have to emote those actions. And so I think you did an amazing job with it. Like, go ahead.
Reset real quick.
He's resetting, but I'll just tell you, I think you did an amazing job with it. I'm like, man, and it's so crazy. Like, I know you're in makeup for so long, but I'm like, this guy looks like 20, 30 years younger. I'm like, wait a minute, he is 20, 30 years younger, because it's crazy, man.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. It was quite an experience. And like I said, when I first read the script, I have to admit, I was a little disappointed, because I read through the script and I was called the big one. Right. And I'm like, who am I? And they said, right now, you're the big one. So I read, and the big one, he didn't do too much. And I'm like, right. Why I went through all this, and they said it was a really big, major part. And I'm like, I'm going through all this, but I'm reading the script, and I don't see the big one doing that much difference,
That's right, like making it, yes.
Yeah, making a difference. So I'm like, I wasn't I shouldn't say the word I wasn't disappointed. I was on cloud nine, but I was a little bit like, oh, what am I going to do here?
Right.
So I come to set, though. I come to set, and I meet Mark Maitre for the first time, who was later in my wedding as a groomsman. We spent 6 hours a day for 6 weeks together, watching Tex Avery movies, cartoons, laughing, and putting my makeup on. So that was one of the highlights of the production, because we became like really good friends. And he was the head sculptor for K&B at the time.
Wow.
And and he actually was picked by Steven Spielberg to sculpt the only life-size dinosaur in Jurassic Park, the original. That was Mark Maitre. Yep.
Yes.
He's something else. You should have Mark on the show here one day. He's got some stories for you, man. He's done everything. He was on Godzilla, the first one, with Patrick Totopoulos as the designer.
This is good stuff, man. Let me ask you this. And by the way, I know the feeling, like you say, of being in something big, and you're like, wait a minute, but like you say, there are no small roles, just small people. So you still got to bring that same attitude. And like I said, you definitely did that. But before we table The People Under the Stairs, we noticed in your credits, the Hawaii Five-0 feature you in a bit of a nod to your character in the 6th episode of their 2014 5th season. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, they showed a clip of People Under the Stairs on the actual show. So they called my people, and they wanted to make sure they got clearance, and they, obviously they made a deal with me to be able to do that. And that was fun. There was like a show that was somebody watching a horror movie in the middle of some criminal, and it was the Stairmaster. So that was a nice little nod to us, because they could have picked any horror movie. They had obviously a selection of thousands. So that was a nice little nod for us.
It's wild the way that Wes Craven's ability to create an iconic character off of so little screen time, just the way that he can like build the allure and the backstory and create this like tension leading up to the moment. Like Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, he has 7 minutes of screen time, he is such like an imposing presence through the whole thing. And it was kind of the same thing with Stairmaster, where it gets to by the end of the movie where you get that payoff where you kind of reveal yourself and come out of the stairs and stand up above mommy. It feels like such a powerful moment, because you go into the movie waiting to see the people under the stairs, and they make you wait for it. And not enough movies do that anymore. They try to grab you in the first 3 minutes. They're afraid you're going to get up and leave the theater or turn it off. Wes Craven was so good at just like drawing something out, foreplay.
I mean, on that note, he definitely had something really big in mind for the big one. And that's probably why he called it the big one, because obviously I was supposed to be the first child kidnapped by this crazy couple, which is also, as you know from the last time we spoke, and most people probably that listens to this knows that it's based on a true story in Santa Monica in the 70s. Crazy sister and brother that owned a whole block, and they were slumlords, and they kidnapped. They tried to get a perfect child. So obviously cutting off the ears and the tongue and all that. It's not true, but they did kidnap kids to get the perfect child, and they were very strict. But what Wes did on to go back to the Stairmaster. So I get to set, I do my makeup, and then we start shooting. And then every day, Wes pulls me aside and start talking about my character and say, okay, what do you think we should do here? This is my idea here. I think we should go here. And all of a sudden, from the pages of the script I had, throw the script away. He basically, the original script was gone now, because every day in the makeup chair, and this is what made me know that I was onto something special. I was involved in something special. And it's, for me too, would make a big difference in my life. Is that Wes every morning while I was sitting there, first hour in, after the first hour, usually he shows up and he gives me more sides. He said, I have created something else for you. I created something else for you. So what I learned is that he wanted to know who played the character before he put it on paper, which was what he felt and believed in his gut. So after he got to know me more, then all of a sudden, all these pages started flourishing with the Stairmaster. And then one day, I don't know, was the fourth or fifth day, but it was on the first week. He comes in with a glimmer in his eye and he says, "I know who you are now." And I'm like, "Who am I?" He said, "You're the Stairmaster." And I'm like, "Oh, this is cool." I'm actually getting goosebumps telling you this because it's even more special because he's not with us anymore. God bless him. But that was like, if you ever have a moment in my life where my life changed, that was probably the moment when he walked into my dressing room and said, "I know who you are. You are the Stairmaster." I'm like, I have so much to thank him for that one line.
I could not imagine. I mean, it's not just anybody saying it either. It's Wes Craven. Like,
Yes, I mean, I felt it. He actually, at that moment, his smiles was from ear to ear. He actually felt like, okay, I just created another thing that's going to be cultish, and he was right.
well, it's got to be so cool to know that you were instrumental in that. Like, it was almost like a collaborative realization. Like, he might not have come to that realization, or maybe it would have come to a different realization if it was a different actor that was playing that part. It may have turned out completely different, but it's so neat that he waited to meet you and watch how you like get to know you a little bit, and then was inspired by that to help figure out who Stairmaster was.
Yeah, no, it was. I real, like I said, it's hard right at that moment to realize what's going on. But in hindsight, after the fact, I realized that was a big moment of my life. For him to, and then I realized that he was up to that all along. That's why he just had a few things here and there, but the big one, he didn't really know what to do with the oldest child under the stairs. He just knew that he wanted a anti-hero, basically, like somebody who looks like the villain, but he actually becomes the hero. It was all, as we all know now, this movie was quite political, and making statements. And this was just another statement of his saying that, I need to know who is going to save this block, meaning the world, more or less. Before I write it, I need to meet him. And we need to shape it together. And we need to do this right, because, he had his little, he had Brandon Adams. He was comfortable with him, and he knew what he could do. And he got Emmett McGill and Wendy Robert from Twin Peaks, and he basically told them, do Twin Peaks, but in this movie, go David Lynch on me in bondage outfits. You know what I mean? And then AJ Langer on top of that with Kelly Jo Minter, and he's got a cast, man. He created this group of and Ving Rhames. Don't forget about him. He got his great time in the beginning of the movie, and the package was solid, and he knew he definitely knew exactly what he was doing, in my opinion. And Sean Whalen as Roach, that little skinny Sean in there, nobody else could play that part. Nobody else could play it, in my opinion. And I think that just the way it came together is just a proof of Wes Craven's intelligence and ability to see what he was creating while creating it, not ahead of time, while he's creating it.
Yeah, there's no questioning his ability to be innovative. I mean, he reinvented. He pretty much created the horror genre we knew of the '80s, and then went and reinvented the wheel that he was like a godfather of in the '90s with Scream, creating the whole like whodunit type of thing. There's no question in that. He's definitely one of the. We'll actually get into that. Let's. We're going to abruptly move on real quick, and we'll come back to that for sure. In 1998, you produced your first film, Sucker, which you also starred in as the lead. What was that experience like, wearing the producer's hat for the first time?
Well, I have to be honest. I didn't do too much producing in that movie. I met up with Hans Rodionov, who also became a really good friend of mine, that wrote this screenplay and directed it. And I assisted him with connections and different outlets and distributors and screenings, and I became yeah, I was so much more than an actor on set with trying to help this film get off the ground, because I played a vampire that got AIDS, and it was the major lead, and was, you know, my first the major lead. That was the, you know, like the top billing. So I wanted it to come out right. So I landed my hand on a lot of things, and so that's how I became a co-executive producer on the film. But I have to admit, I wasn't a producer from ground zero.
Okay.
I was first booked as an actor or cast as an actor, and I got to know Hans and I started working with him. But yes, the experience was to see a little bit on the other side of the camera and have advice and tell him, this is what I think, this is my opinion. It was really it was very learning experience, and it was very rewarding.
I'm glad you said that it was a learning experience, because it wasn't, I mean, like you say, you kind of stepped into the producer role, but here we are now. You've been producing films for over 3 decades now. So let me ask you this. What's the biggest difference that you can share with us in the process, or even the lesson that you learned now that you can apply, comparing the experience of, let's say, Sucker to your latest production in Adeline's Lane?
Well, now I know a lot more about both sides. You know, what's happening behind the camera and in front of the camera. And I know from my perspective how I would like to be treated as an actor and how I would like the process to go. And I know in my perception how I would like the behind the scenes to go, and what I expect from each person that are head of each category and each department, and what I feel like it's their job, and what I should expect. Much more than before. So, you know, like when you have the wide spectrum of behind and in front of, and you kind of have an idea of exactly everybody's position and everybody's job, it gives you a whole different wide angle thing about making films.
Yeah, I can imagine. What for like the filmmakers, the writers out there, maybe you could speak on this to their benefit. When you're thinking about what your next project is going to be, like, what is that process like for you? What are you looking for when you're deciding what the next production you'll take on as a producer is?
As a producer, a lot of times it's in-house projects. Like I have ideas, and we might develop it from my ideas, or I have friends that have really good screenplays and they need help. Or they come to me and I know people and they like, can you get it to this and this and that? And I get involved that way as a producer. Or they just need, you know, hands-on, on the ground producers, and they don't have any. And I like the script. And if I like the script, and my partner is my wife, Victoria Tarazi in Pure Entertainment. That's a production company. And if you both agree that this is a story worth telling, no matter how it comes to us, I like to see what we can do with it, and, you know, develop it further, and see if we can attach some elements and get it financed and get it produced.
Nice.
You know, but it's got to be a good screenplay. I mean, you know, yeah. Integrity is important in my opinion. And you know, I've done some films that I didn't come out very well. I'm not gonna say names or who, you know, who's, you know, I'm not gonna blame anybody for it, but right. I've done some films that are, you know, if I knew how they'd come out, I probably wouldn't have done them. But, you know, it's all part of the journey. Everybody does, you know, up and downs. You have valleys and peaks. So
yeah.
You know, a lot of times they, you know, if the movie is not really good, you could have still done really well. But, you know, nobody looks at that if the movie is, you just have to put it aside.
Yeah. Is there like a priority tier as far as you're concerned? Like when you're, I'm trying to think of how to word this. Like, are you thinking about like what's being put out right now? What's doing well?
No, not really. I mean, what I think about you know, I have to go this, obviously, this is the entertainment industry. I think about myself a lot. I think about, can I be in this movie? Can I produce? So if I can produce an act, obviously it's very beneficial to me. I'm not going to be ashamed of that. If I find something that fits me, I'm more interested in producing than if I find something that I have nothing to do with. I might still produce, but I would like to be involved. I would have the vehicle for myself. So I look at that. Pure Entertainment, when we first formed it, our thoughts were pure mind, pure heart. Make more movies that talks to people's hearts and emotions. Doesn't matter. That doesn't have to be. I mean, it can be across all genres, but it has to have a message. Mm-hmm. Even horror movies can have a message, and it could be a positive message. It doesn't all have to be blood and gore and see how much blood we can get on the screen in a few minutes as possible. You don't have to make movies like that, even if it's in that genre. So
I was going to say, speaking of having a message, and you talked about what draws you to a project. So if you don't mind, talk to us about Adeline's Lane. What drew you to take it on this project, and did it encompass some of those things you just mentioned before?
Yeah, Adeline's Lane is a great story. A friend of my wife's came to her with an experience that she experienced, a personal experience. And my wife said, that's a movie. And she said, I'm going to write it. Or her friend said, you write it. So my wife wrote the screenplay, Adeline's Lane, based on her friend's experience. And it's basically a bunch of millennium girls, high school friends, that goes on a weekend getaway, and it goes really bad.
Well, that's spoiler alert.
It's a great story, and when my wife, obviously my wife wrote it. It's her first original screenplay, and it's fantastic. She's done a lot of script doctoring. She's quite amazing when it comes to script doctoring. And she started with Dominic Sanai, Michael Bay, and Anton Fuqua, and all those people in propaganda films in the 80s. Everything from a PA up to a first AD and directing. And then she did Universal Television as an assistant director for television, which is a lot more than an assistant director on film. You actually have to direct all the inserts. So she's one of those. She's done everything in film, in production, on the other side of the camera. And now she's writing, and she's fantastic. And I love the screenplay, and obviously I'm in the screenplay. I'm in this movie, and I'm looking forward to shooting it.
Did she write you in a flattering light, or are you a villain?
I can't say too much because then I give it away. But I mean, I'm definitely. I look like a villain. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Fair enough. You are known for your contributions to the horror genre, no doubt. But I wanted to take a moment, and I think we're good on time. I wanted to take a moment to appreciate the flip side to that coin. That was supposed to be your line.
Thank you. Yes.
Comedy. In 2007, you starred as a character credited as Blonde Swede in an episode of TBS's Frank TV. We're intrigued simply by the characters' names in this episode because you've got young Helen Keller, Ellen DeGeneres, Kim Jong-il. What's happening in there? And you work with Joey Diaz, who is like a powerhouse in himself. Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, Frank was a stand-up comedian. So he had this show, unfortunately it's not on anymore, called Frank TV. And he had like a setup like a talk show, but it was not a real talk show. Everybody in the audience was an actor. And he pulled people up and he made jokes out of everyone. So it was kind of like a comedy stand-up show behind the scenes, but it's like showing real. It's hard to explain, but so I was a blonde Swede in the audience, and I was one of his targets, and he made a lot of jokes about me, and then I hit him right back. It was the action reaction thing, and then we were wrestling with jokes for a minute, or insults, I should say, and the same thing with all the other characters you mentioned. They were all there, and they were in the audience, but they were characters in the show. And he was just shooting the shit with us, making fun.
That sounds awesome.
Now I want to talk about now in 2015, you were Stig in one of my favorite shows ever. I'm a huge fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and the episode was appropriately titled "The Swedes." So now Neil deGrasse Tyson also appears in your episode, and it looks like you got smacked around a bit by Andy Samberg and Mark Evan Jackson, who was also hilarious demon in The Good Place. He plays a character named Kevin Costner. Now, there's obviously a stark contrast in tone between comedy and horror. Is the tone on set different between the genres for you?
No, No. I have to say, most of the horror sets, the people are, you have no idea you're in a horror movie. Like I said, like about Wes Craven earlier, Wes Craven has the biggest heart. Chuck Russell is the one of my best friends. Roger Corman was fantastic. I mean, it's all love. It's all love and creation. It's like, I feel like when you get a group of artists together and they know they're making money on what they love to do, it's all about passion and heart and helping each other out. That's my experience. Mm-hmm. So when I'm on the comedy set, it's the same thing. Like the only difference is everybody on there is mostly used to comedy, and I was not. I mean, I've done few, but I was more of a general actor, and I was treated the same way as I was on any horror set. Like, extremely well, friendly. Me and Andy had some really good talks about life and his show in general. And one thing I have to say about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it was amazing to be on. It was 8 to 5. It was like any other job. You show up. They started exactly at 8 and they ended exactly at 5, no matter what scene they were on. Done, and then people go home. And we treated extremely well with everything else, with the food and the lunch and everything. It was a great production, and I enjoyed it very much.
That was a great answer, because I was just thinking when he was saying that one of the craziest things is that when you do a horror, yeah, you can still be laughing on set and things like that, and it turned out great. But when you're adversely, when you're doing a comedy and people aren't laughing, that's some scary shit. Because like, wait a minute, is it the writing? Is it the actor? We're back in rewrites.
Yeah. No, I did play a Swedish mafia boss in it, so it's not like I was the dry comedy element. I was supposed to be serious, funny. So and it was fun. It was great. We did a lot of takes. I enjoyed it very much.
We talked to you before about your work with Kehoe on 99 Problems, which is still blasting film festivals with success worthy of the Guinness Book of World Records. I literally can't keep track anymore of the laurels and all of the accolades that it's getting. And the audience, if you check out the Man in the Pink Hat bonus episode, that's available in the bonus episodes right now, where we talk to Jan and the rest of the casting crew from 99 Problems. We'll be doing a second part to that next month, where we catch up with the producers. But we don't want to spoil anything, but wanted to ask, when the show is inevitably picked up for a full season somewhere, have you talked to Mike at all about how your character might fit into the bigger story?
Yeah, I will be. I've talked to him. I can't say too much. It was a little less than it is now, I think, because of all the success. We actually have 98 laurels right now. I just got a text this morning. So we're trying to get 99 wins. That would be like the 99 for 9. That was the goal all along. And we are one off now. We were just at Screamfest this weekend, Screamfest LA.
The Chinese theater, right?
Yeah, no, that was Chinese theaters. That basically one of the biggest horror festivals in the world, and we were screened there to a full house. I went there. It was a great premiere, red carpet we could barely fit. The cast came in last, and we barely found seats. So that's how well received it was. And I think I definitely have a part in the series. That's for sure.
Nice.
That's all I can say right now. I think it's being discussed. It's being extended. It's been expanded. Hopefully, it's been planned because all the success we had. I think they are trying to make the best out of everybody's involvement, not just mine, but Richard Leacock and Tori London and Dennis and Michelle and the cast. So we won best ensemble cast in so many different festivals. So I think that the main goal is to keep the crew and cast as intact as possible and make a kick-ass show.
Yeah, I said it before, I'll say it again. I am sincerely looking forward to continuing that story and finding out where it goes from there. And I saw the pictures of you guys on the red carpet. You and Richard were looking slick.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that must have been an amazing experience to watch that in a packed house in that theater. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. And like 3 weeks earlier, I'm sure you're aware, but we won the best TV pilot at the Burbank Film Festival, International Film Festival, with Bruce Davis and Boo Bridges giving us the award. That was an experience, I have to say. That was also 99 Problems. We kicking ass.
Yeah.
Mike Cahill and John T. Connor, DP, and Rob Harper and Richard, the producers. Everybody is fantastic. It's just the team itself, the cast and the crew. I can't say enough about them. I think Michael Cahill just somehow put the dream team together, and we're kicking ass.
Yeah, and huge.
Oh, and Sala Baker too, as an actor, of course. I don't want to forget about him.
The hustle as far as getting it into the festivals, and not just that, but like keeping that momentum going online on social media and putting all that out there. I know that's got to be exhausting for if it's Mike or a team of people around it doing it, but the footprint of 99 Problems on social media is incredible. It's like, I mean, it's out there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay, let's get into the people under the stairs. We'd like to thank Kelly Jo Minter for joining us, and a big thanks to Mr. Jan for coordinating this. So these questions that we're getting ready to get into will be for any and everyone. You guys just let us know. Dirk, take us away.
All right. You just okay. I see what you did.
Thank
okay.
you. Yes.
I'm sorry. This is we're
now we're cooking with grease.
Yeah.
Chicken grease.
There you go.
So, Kelly, for people out there that have not seen People Under the Stairs, that are for some reason watching this episode, could you give us a like your best one sentence bio for your character, and kind of like how you got the part and what that was like?
A one sentence bio about the part. Never heard that question before. How about sister who will fuck somebody up if you mess with her brother or family?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And scene. Yeah.
That's accurate. That's accurate. Like, how did that audition process go? How were you chosen for that role?
I'm sure they auditioned many people. I went to the audition, and I had the flu at the time, and I took some Theraflu or something. So I was asleep in the hallway, and Eileen Knight Mack, I don't know, Jan, is that the right pronunciation of her name? Casting director, awesome.
Eileen Mack Knight right now.
Yeah. And she was like, Kelly, wake up. And I was just out of it. But anyway, they let me come back on a Friday, and I was feeling much better. And I met Wes, and I got the part.
And that wouldn't be the first time that you worked on something that was Wes Craven adjacent. You were in one of my favorite Nightmare on Elm Streets.
Well, thank you. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, huh?
Yeah. So since we're given since I'm blanking.
Why? What happened to you, man?
I only know him as Fool right now. So since we're giving Fool a few minutes to come on, I'm going to take advantage of that and ask you about The Dream Child and what that was like for you, because
you know what? It was crazy because before doing that film, I had never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Wow. And I wasn't even going to do it. I was like, what is this, man? But my neighbor encouraged me, and Stephen Hopkins was super cool, went and met him. And, it was interesting. Like I never met Robert Englund until I did my scene. We were doing it at this old spaghetti factory on Robertson in Venice, and the props. Everybody on the crew was super cool. That's always a plus. And the people that you work with too. So, of course, I'm business. I about doing my job and making it happen. But everybody was just super nice. It was a great experience for me. And I'm glad to have been a part of that the Nightmare on Elm Street family, and the People Under the Stairs. People Under the Stairs was fucking dope. It's still dope. I mean, it resonates. It's now, So Wes was very much ahead of his time.
Let me ask you this, as far as in regards to what kind of genre you prefer to do. I know we're talking about these horror films. Is that your favorite genre to do, or do you like to do other things, or what's really in your wheelhouse?
Well, at the time, it was kind of like, okay, I'm a multicultural woman. It wasn't a lot of parts. So I was just trying to work. But I have just been really fortunate to have worked in some classic films that people really remember.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if I'm not mistaken, is the New Jack City on that list?
New Jack City, Summer School, House Party.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
Bitch, who are you calling a bitch? Your mama's a sorry bitch.
Basically, my whole childhood, you were there.
Very, very fortunate to have had the chance to work with so many good people. And my very first film, I was a grip, and I did the film Mask with Cher and Eric Stoltz and Sam Elliott. And went back to work the same day. And I said, hey, man, I did a movie with Cher. They were like, what? Until, of course, it came out. And then I got a development deal with Universal after that. So it's been a wild ride. I mean, I would just love to be working. I feel like the horror fans are the best fans.
Yeah,
honestly.
They're definitely loyal.
I mean, they will come to the convention. They have their stuff ready. They know what they want. And they're really interested in talking to you. So they're not just like, and I'm talking about all walks of life and super interesting. So I find that the horror fans are the most committed, and I love doing horror. So if there was something else to come along, I probably would do it. I mean, I've had offers to do other things, but I'm not trying to just come out just to be in another film. I want to do something that's going to be dope, So, I'm down if there's, the right script, and, I don't have to even be the lead person I think that's what people really get crazy about. The thing about horror is you're not the star, honey.
Right.
You're just a character. And that's the beauty of it. That's what I love about it. You don't have to be, I'm the star and I did this horror film. Nobody gives a shit about that. Is it scary? Is the story good?
When do you get killed?
Exactly. Fortunately, I didn't get killed in Nightmare on Elm Street, but 5. But, hopefully there'll be a change where there are more people doing, of course, Jordan Peele doing Get Out. And he really loved The People Under the Stairs. And hopefully it changes where you're going to see a lot of other people in horror. I mean, I know Blumhouse is doing, or I think that's how you pronounce it, is doing a lot of horror stuff. So I just hope it just opens up more.
Yeah.
I think Brandon's with us now, actually.
Yep, Brandon, thank you very much.
Hey.
What's going on, man?
Thanks for having me. How you guys doing?
Hello,
Good,
little
good.
brother.
Hey, buddy.
What's up, big sis?
Big
Hey.
I don't know why I expected you to be this tall. From The Sandlot to The Mighty Ducks, People Under the Stairs, like Boy Meets World. I didn't know. Who are you?
I'm an old man now, man. I got these grays and everything,
Well, thank you so much.
Brandon, you still look good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I didn't say anything.
Well, of course, the model isn't going to say anything. The Swedish model is going to be quiet.
Brandon, you look like you're waiting for Spencer to come out right now.
Right.
I had a question for him real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you, and John was speaking to this earlier. No one knew Ving Rhames was going to be Ving Rhames back then, or maybe you guys did. What was it like working with him, man? Even now, it still has to be surreal. Like, dude, I was there when this thing first popped off with Ving Rhames. How does that feel, man? What's that like?
Him and Kelly, they were really, up until that point, I had been really working on a lot of projects with other kids. And you know, so it was kind of like fun most of the time. It wasn't always work. It wasn't until I got on the set with these guys that I, you know, it was like I was out with my older brothers and sisters past my bedtime, and it was really on the job learning, working experience, you know. So I didn't know that he was going to blow up to be, you know, Pulp Fiction and this and that and all, you know, but at the same time, you could tell that there was something there. He was inspiring me from the whole time we were working together. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's cool, man.
He's so far from People Under the Stairs, but at the end of the day, he's still in the basement with a GIMP.
Yeah.
Right.
Never
It's funny, man. There's those recurring themes in acting. I don't know. I was just thinking about it the other day, and even all the parts that I played as a kid, it was like I was almost always poor. I was almost, you know, like always the poor kid, some way or another, no matter what show it was, you know. But it's cool. It's either the poor kid or the boyfriend. But, you know, you get in where you fit in, man.
And Brandon, I was just mentioning that myself. I was just like, there wasn't a lot of parts out there. So, you know, are you the token Black person? But you made those parts shine. You have real talent, and I hope you get it back out there again. I know you do a bunch of other things, but I'd love to see you back out there doing something, and they should reprise your role, and you should be doing People Under the Stairs too. How about that?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I agree with her. But
That was the one I knew when I came in, even as a little boy. Kelly Jo Minner, okay? She had been in everything. I had a crush on my big sis when I came in there. I was like, she was the one that was popping.
Mommy and Daddy weren't the only incestuous attractions.
Let me ask you, I wanted to ask you this, and I thank you for coming in and taking some time out with us here. If you, like you just said, you were hanging out with Big Brother, Big Sister, and all these things, and Jan's on set, and all this is happening. Based off how film has changed now, let me ask you something. If they were to recast your role, as you just said, who would play a young you? Who would really play our younger version? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
That's a hard question.
I'm like you.
I mean, there's a lot of good young actors out there, man, that I probably don't even know, you know.
If Jordan Peele were to remake that right now, he should cast you as Leroy, and then have the little girl from Us come in for the main child, and do a little gender swap on that.
That'd be nice. And still, Kelly.
That's a brilliant idea too.
I want to see this version of Kelly now. Still Big Sister.
Yeah, no, she can still play Big Sister. And you know what? My whole freaking face is full of makeup. It doesn't matter how old I am. I can do the same role again.
Bring her back. Somebody get Vin on the phone.
30 years later, I look the same, buddy.
Right.
I just have to be able to scroll
cool
on
idea
those
with the gender swap, though. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That would be dope.
That is cool.
What I wanted to this question is for everybody. Wes Craven moved on from the world, of course, in 2015, thankfully leaving behind his nearly 4 decades of masterful contributions to the horror genre, defining horror in the 80s and then redefining it in the 90s with Scream. He'd easily be one of the main faces if there were a Mount Rushmore of horror. And then Jan, like we were talking about in the interview, in the spot you wrote in the rap, you talked about Wes's compassion for his actors and how he had the biggest heart. If anyone has a memory or something that they'd like to say about Mr. Craven, please share.
Well, I can. I don't know if I shared this memory the last time, but when all the producers came on set, I know I shared the Brandon Adams story in the rap, so. We can leave that alone. When he ran around the block with Brandon for our last scene, that was the showing the biggest heart I've ever seen in the director, because Brandon just didn't. It was late at night, and Brandon just didn't get there, and he's like, "Screw acting, let's go running," and that's how he got Brandon to just be himself. He just threw him on set and say action, and Brandon's like sweating, running around, and like started saying his lines. I'm like, I just felt it. It was magnetic, and that's the take in the movie. But another story was when I came to set one morning, as I do really early every morning because I had to sit in a makeup chair for such a long time. And everybody was not where they usually are. It was running on like rats. I'm like, what's going on today? And I went into the makeup room and Greg Nicotero is not there. Mark Maitre is not there. Nobody's there. The hair person's not there. And I'm like, they're going in and out of bathrooms and stuff. What's going on? And they like, the suits are coming. The suits are coming from Universal because we're over budget. Like you know, they might shut us down. And I heard things like, and this is the first experience I had with this kind of production when they get nervous about I didn't realize the fear of the studio or the money before. That was my first experience because I came from Roger Corman and it was all his own money. So it's not like he never had that fear. So I see these people and I overhear things like, oh, my kid's going to college and this, I can't lose this movie. And I'm like, Jesus, everybody was stressed out to no end. So they kept asking, where's Wes? Where's Wes? Wes was nowhere. Everybody was everywhere except Wes. And these guys, the producers come on board, all these, and they had suits. Everybody had a suit on. They walk from department to department, checking things out, but nobody can find Wes. So I'm like, I think I know where he is at. So we had a couple of spots where we used to hang out. Me and Wes, we talked a lot because he wanted me to have like a little, shoulder over Brandon and his grandmother and all that. So we got really close. And AJ was young, so I kind of protected her a little bit. And then, so we had our spots. So I walk over to the fire ladder. This was in Renmar Studios with a flat roof. And they had a fire ladder in the corner on one side. And I knew a spot. So I climbed up the fire ladder all the way up and I look up and it's a blue sky with the sun shining and Wes is lying on his back, just looking at the sky. And I'm like, Wes, everybody's looking for you, man. What are you doing? He said, I'm waiting for them to leave so I can finish my movie. That was Wes in a nutshell. It was not about anything else. He knew what he was delivering. He knew they were going to make money. He knew he had nothing to worry about. But if he gets down there and start talking to these people, it would flip him off. It would get him into a different frequency, different energy, the fear, the stress, the worry. He didn't want any of that. He just wanted to stay in his creative mind because he knew what he was shooting that day. And I understand more now than I did then. He did not want anything to jeopardize his shot list in his brain. So he just waited. He's waited it out. And when they left, he came down and we shot a fantastic scene. So
that's great. What was that I want to go back to that story with that you touched on, Jan, with Wes running around. What was that like for you, Brandon, that night? What do you remember from that? I mean, you were like going on 12 years old during this production,
11.
right?
He was 11.
No, not even. Yeah, I mean, I was what, 11 when it came out.
Wow.
Right? 91.
Yeah.
So really I was like probably around 9 years old. But, that's just the kind of guy that Wes was. He was quiet, but strategic, caring. He knew how to get what he needed out of the actors without being too technical about it. He just knew how to put you in the feeling of things, Even like when you were talking about Ving earlier, it was like that was one of the things I was speaking on. He knew how to, before a scene, he would say, come on, Brandon, let's drop down. Let's do some push-ups. So let's do some so that we're in the mind state that we need to be in by action. And Wes was just a master at that. He knew how to, he put the right things. He put a basketball court out there on the set for me, different things just so that I could kind of be myself. And then when it came to directing me, at the most, it was like just a little suggestion here or there, but never nothing like too technical. He knew how to do his job. He was a master at it, and at the end of the day, I think it was just more about putting you in the feeling of what you needed to do more than critiquing the acting or whatnot,
Between your abilities and his direction, I was really impressed by your performance in the film because, like, with child actors, a lot of the times it's either over the top or it's kind of like locked up and stoic, just kind of like robotically saying lines. But for being so young, even if you were not so young, I mean, you were natural, and to be that young and kind of carry the film, It was impressive.
I appreciate it. And like I said, that I couldn't have done it without the help of all these guys. You know what I mean? I felt like they were really guiding me through everything, you know.
Kelly, I want to ask you one thing. Like you said, as to what Brandon was speaking to, is like you say, did you find yourself, and I think you were speaking to it earlier, actually taking on that this is no longer just his big sister on paper. I'm now there with him. We have to make this chemistry, because it seemed like they had that brother. So it felt natural. So did you guys work on that? How did that come about?
No, we didn't have to work on it. It was natural.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, I hit you upside your head. No.
Yes, ma'am.
Brandon is like one of those, let me just tell you, I work with a lot of different child actors, and it's the parents that are nuts, which makes the kids neurotic. You know, Brandon's family, they're real people. You know what I mean? So he was real. So what you saw is an authentic kid out here having fun, wasn't tainted by all the neuroticism of these freaking kids in show business. And he had his grandmama who had his back. So if somebody would have did something crazy, it would have been on him cracking, I'm sure. And we weren't going to let anything happen to Brandon. And speaking again about Wes was like, it wasn't that kind of set where people were all like freaking out and, you know, oh, the director. It wasn't even that kind of energy. So everything just flowed. It was easy. It wasn't like, oh, Brandon, you need to. No, I'm looking at him for a cue. You know what I mean? No, he, you know, Brandon, I'm not going to say he's underrated because, of course, he has his props. But that was a little kid. You know what I mean? That's on par with Haley Joel Osment.
Sixth
Yep.
Sense.
The Sixth Sense. I mean, you know what I mean? That kind of intensity. You only see that every once in a while. And this is a young Black kid, which you don't see as a person who is carrying this film. So that's a lot. And maybe because he was just having so much fun, but he knew this was a job and he had a good work ethic that his family had put into him. It was all good.
Hey, I know Macaulay Culkin's had his lines in Home Alone, but Brandon, yours ranks number one for me. What does he say? You know a prayer? Say one.
Oh, man. Yeah, there was so many good lines in there, man.
Yeah.
Wes really did his thing, and I loved it. You know, I remember when I first went out for the audition, and you know, I had my little bad streaks, but I remember that being some of the most exciting parts to me. Is like all the little lines, you know, the grown line. I remember my grandmother saying, "That's a lot of cursing." Like I don't know about this, and I was like, "Look, grandma,
Holding the shotgun, you guys gonna calculate.
Yeah, I was going to ask what Grandma thought about the F word.
I'm tired of fucking around.
Oh man, grandma, I remember she was like, "That's a lot of cursing." I was like, you know, it's a real situation. You know, but grandma was with it. She knows what's up.
No, his grandma was something else on set. I have to say, she was an anchor on set. She befriended me really closely because also at that time, synchronicity again. Me and Brandon came from the same agency like 4 years earlier when he was a really little Michael Jackson and stuff. We were in the same agency, and I knew about him, and I heard his name. He's like, Brandon Adams is in this. I knew him when he was like even smaller, you know. So his grandma, I met his grandmother 4 years earlier at the agency. So she took to me a lot, and she came into my room every day, no fail. And she put him, whatever his makeup or hair, and he's like, I'll leave you for a minute. He comes into my dressing room, she closed the door, and she's like, well, let's talk about today. I'm like, okay. So he's going to say all these things. Are you okay with that? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that. It's a movie. And she's like, well, I'm a little uncomfortable with this. I'm like, no. Brandon can handle it. He's strong enough. He's like, okay, if you say so, because you're a little younger than me. I just want to make sure everything is on the same page here and everything's going to be cool. And I don't want him to suffer later in life. I'm like, no. This is all good. This is all good. I mean, I love his grandma. We had a great time on set. You know, she was like watching over me too. Like, what are you doing now? I'm like, oh, I'm just getting snacks, man. Come on. You know?
Hey, grandma was watching over the whole situation.
Oh, she definitely. Yeah.
That's the real Stairmaster.
Yeah. She was delegating. She was good. It was good. I mean, she made the movie for him, I think. Without her, I don't think he would have been what he was. So,
I mean,
good.
the whole thing, the whole experience, it was just a real creative, cool, relaxed space. Like, even when you were talking about Wes earlier, it was, I've been around directors who were like, do this. It's never do this. It was just always try this or try that. Let's do another one and, try something else. So it was a lot of freedom just to kind of be creative. And I think you're always going to get the best work like that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Not too long before his passing, he was actually putting together a reboot in the form of a series with Sci-Fi. And Jan, I read that you were interested in reprising your role as Stairmaster and possibly talking about it. Are there any details that you could share about what could have been with that?
No, it was just me and Wes where we were texting and tweeting together back and forth, and he was all excited about the show. He called me and said, "Hey, I have this Sci-Fi thing going. You're in it." I mean, he was finally. It was so Wes. He was finally like, "Wow, all these years, I want to, now I'm going to do this, and I want you involved." And we had this talk, and then he started tweeting me back and forth about what he had planned. And I was, I don't know exactly if I was going to reprise my role as the Stairmaster, but I was going to be in the series for sure. And I was very excited about it. But he said it's very early. I just signed the deal. It's going to take about 6 months before we know what we're going to do and this and that. And 2 months later, he was no longer with us on this plane, unfortunately. So we never know what was going to happen there. But I was definitely going to be involved, which I appreciate very much. And God bless him.
Absolutely.
One of the things you guys obviously share this camaraderie, and I can just tell now this mini reunion we're having here it speaks to how much fun and the type of culture you guys have on set. Because I do love sets like that. As you mentioned, you don't want to say where it's just going mayhem. I know we did some research, and actress Wendy Roby credits The People Under the Stairs as the most fun she's ever had on a film set. So if you guys can each tell us just a favorite memory you have from set, whether it's in front or behind the camera.
I don't think it was just one thing. I think it was just, I was like, wow, this is really dope. Look at this. I've never seen a woman DP. Is that what Sandy was?
Sandy Sissel, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It was like just unusual. And just everything, it was the vibe. The vibe was, it was a good vibe. And everybody, I'm talking about from the makeup people, hair people, craft service, everybody was just on point. And it was like a pleasure to go to work. And then sometimes I'd be sitting down talking to Wes during lunch, and I was asking him, like, how was it to do Serpent in the Rainbow? I mean, when I tell you he was a storyteller, you'd be sitting there like, what? Just like, and he was just kind of no frills, but had a certain intensity about him. But I mean, I was just glad to be working with people who weren't insane. And it wasn't a lot of drama and all of that. So it was a great experience for me. And I still love these guys. You know what I mean? We go and do the convention. These are my brothers. You know what I mean? So I wasn't going to let Jan down today. I mean, that's my bro. He's like, Kelly, I need you at 5. Okay.
No, I appreciate that. And Brandon, too. And unfortunately, Sean can't be with us, but, he's a little prima donna. But anyway.
He's tongue-tied.
No, but I mean, I agree with Kelly, actually. Overall, I have so many different great experiences from this set, and it changed my life, and literally. So, I mean, we're still going on conventions because of this one movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it changed all our lives in some capacity or the other. But I think in general, the energy I got from Wes. Now, even in hindsight, afterwards, now meeting all these other people between Wes and now, these hundreds of people you met and worked with, he was just so genuine. It was just real. When he talked to you, he knew exactly what he was saying, and he meant every single word. and that to me was gratifying. It was just, you know, like I didn't realize that, I think, when I shot the movie, because then I shot with all these other people and you didn't get the same feeling, you know, like I was spoiled with Wes because it's my second film here. And I thought, okay, this is fantastic. This is going to be the rest of my life. Like, I love everything, but then, you know, you have different experiences afterwards. I was just very spoiled and fortunate and blessed to work with Wes early in my career to realize what it really is all about.
I would have to agree, man. Just the overall experience was great for me. I don't really have one moment. I mean, from beginning to end, from how I got the role, you know, all these great people that I worked with. I'll tell you a secret. Like, when I got the role, I had never read the full script. So, and I mean, up until it was time to film. So I was kind of like, it was all unveiling to me as we were going along. You know what I mean? I kind of thought it was a movie about these people and didn't know how huge my role was in the whole thing. So it just really, you know, unraveled for me. And I got to just, like I said, I worked with all these great people. I got to do my own little stunt work and shit. You know, I was messing with the dogs and doing this and doing. So the overall experience was just crazy. At the end of the movie, you know, Wes let me throw my own premiere where I had all my friends come from school and all this, you know, so it was just like, it was an unmatchable experience overall, man. And probably one of the greatest projects I've ever been involved with. It was, you know what I mean? So it's too much to narrow it down to one thing.
Yeah.
And he did a flying
From
V.
the king of pop to the king of horror. What a life.
Now,
Exactly.
that musicians like the Rolling Stones, all musicians, they get to go on tour, even after songs they made 30 years ago. That's their tour. Well, for actors and thespians, we get to go to Comic Cons and movie cons. That's our version of it.
Right.
So speaking of that, People of Under the Stairs is coming up on its 30th anniversary, and we read that you guys have something pretty cool planned to celebrate at the New Mexico Comic and Film Expo. Is there anything you guys can tell us about that?
Well, we're gonna do the one and only 30th anniversary reunion this year at one place in New Mexico, Albuquerque. Actually, you know, Halloween weekend. So we're gonna all, me, Sean, Kelly, and Brandon, gonna all four of us be together. But that it looks like it's gonna be the only one this year, and then we're gonna keep going next year. But because of COVID and all that stuff, this is what we got, and we're gonna bring the big guns, and we're gonna have some fun.
As you go to these Comic Cons and horror cons and whatnot, what is that relationship like with the fans 30 years later? And like, how, like, is there like are there people showing up in GIMP suits?
You know,
there's cosplay. There's cosplay for sure, but you know, like I was saying before, the horror fans know their shit. They're coming. It's generations. It's the grandmother, the mother, the kids. I mean, they grew up on it. They know the dialogue. I'm like, wow. You know, and it's amazing how they say this movie influenced their life, or, you know what I mean? It's just really a touchstone at a certain time in their life. I mean, I've heard all kind of interesting stories, but you never know how you're going to affect other people. You know what I mean? And in the end of this film, this little kid from the hood overcomes, you know? And just like little kids in the hood right now, you know what I mean? You still can overcome. You know, I think it was way ahead of its time, and super proud to be been a part of it for sure.
Yeah, and it was one of the films, I have to say, from the convention experience that the parents let really young kids watch. I never experienced any other movie in the horror genre that people come up to me and say, I was 4 years old when I saw that. Oh, my mom let me see it when I was 7. I'm like, what?
Right.
There was some blood in this movie, man. There was some weird shit with bondage and stuff. And yeah, anyway, you know, and but you have no idea how many people there are like, they're like millennials now, and they're like, wow, that was my favorite movie. I'm like, how old were you? 5.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
I never experienced a movie in this genre before that the parents let them see that early. And I think it has a lot to do with Brandon and his performance and his character in it, because they could relate to a
For
kid
sure.
being the hero. And they kind of like, you know, even the parents saw something there. They saw this is important. Most parents saw this is, you know, we love horror, but this is more than that. And I'm going to let you watch it.
Yeah, it definitely was. Let me ask you guys this before we people under the stairs. I did want to ask you guys this because you did mention the Film Expo and things of that nature. This has become a cult classic. It's one of those films where it just goes on and on, generation to generation. For the true cult following fans, is there anything that either one of you guys can tell us about the film that people may not know, that may not be out there? Just anything that you guys can think of.
Well, I know there was a lot of real stuff. I mean, I know Wes took the whole idea from a real situation where some children were being held in somebody's basement or somewhere, you know. But just overall, man, I think I still, when I see it today, especially as I get, you know, as I'm older, I see there's so much messaging in there that I didn't see before. Just the whole socioeconomic backstory to it, you know, from the slumlords and them just having this hand of power over the ghetto and the projects and the situation that's going on, and we're all suffering because of these people. You know, there's a lot of underlining messaging in this movie that I look at now and I just go, man, this guy was brilliant, and he was telling a story that still has validity till today. You know what I mean? So, and that's what good stories do, right? You can keep watching them and you still see things.
Yes.
The more and more you watch, you know?
How he would make these very complicated villains and kind of play on these stereotypes of what you'd expect a bad guy to be. Especially like with People Under the Stairs, you go into it expecting the people under the stairs to be the antagonists, but then you get mommy and daddy characters. But what was really interesting to me was what's his name now? I said it like 20 times now.
Vin Rames character.
Yeah.
Yep. I came up.
When his character was really interesting to me because he was almost like the representation of like even people in your own camp might out to get you as well and be toxic to your.
When you heard what he told, what did he tell me, man? I know
it was like Killmonger, Black Panther in a way.
There you go. There you go.
You know,
that's 100% right way to say
right. Before we say goodbye, just want to give everybody an opportunity to, if there's anything you want to let the audience know about, and just any parting words that you'd like to leave the audience with.
Well, I just wanted to say that we're going on 30 years now with People Under the Stairs, and as everybody has said on this program, this movie is as present today as it was 30 years ago. And I think people should reflect, watch it again, and realize that this tells us a lot of things about the world, and we can learn a lot from it. And God bless Wes for being alive and being a creator.
Absolutely.
Well, I can't even put anything else on that. I think that was very well said. And again, thank you for every single fan out there who has put us on. And we want to do this because you, the fans, are deserving. And we appreciate you all. So thank you for having us.
And I mean, I feel like they both said it. But you know, again, too, like with the conventions and the shows that we do, like that's the best part to me is like meeting the fans and seeing how much these projects meant to them. I mean, we know what it was for us, you know, but when we get to see the fans and like Jan said, from, you know, the older generation to the younger and people who share it with the next generation, it's just that's the best part. And that's how we make it, you know, live on forever until Jordan Peele comes and redoes it.
when all of us involved. Amen.
Thank you, guys.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Please be safe. I wish you much success. And Brandon, hey, thank you. I'm jealous of you of only for one thing. You got to do the flying V, man. You know how many times I've seen my yeah, jealous of the flying V.
Not about the fact that he got to dance with Michael Jackson.
Nope, flying V.
Flying V. That's what's up. Appreciate you, my brother. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having us too.
Thank you so
I had
much.
a good time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, brothers. See you soon.
Bye. Love you. See
Bye.
you soon.
Love you. Take care, buddies.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us, man.